the edges of Caradon's Cross, the border of the Old Kingdom begins. The memories say there were thousands of Thaigs, almost beyond counting, stretching from one end of Thedas to the other. Its corridors were the work of great architectural achievement and construction, and its Thaigs were the sites of invention and creation over thousands of years. It was this Dwarven kingdom that gave birth to the common tongue, the trade tongue that Thedas still speaks today, and it was this Dwarven kingdom that invented the standard gold, silver and bronze coinage that is still used today as well. Not far from the site of Caradon's Cross, where we left off on our journey last time, we find the site of a long-lost outpost underneath the Ferelden town of Crestwood, along the edges of Lake Calenhad and the River Dane. This outpost, built on the order of King Kilgak, predates the blights to the glory years of the Dwarven Kingdom. It was dedicated to Paragon Hecate, a pioneer of mathematics, likely to have discovered laws of physics relating to pressure, structural integrity, and gravity, known to the dwarves as the principles of nature, which allowed them to build their most massive halls. The outpost was commemorated with a plaque, which states the intention to form a halfway marker between the Great Thaig of Idúkin and the Soaring Thaig of Gondar. In the time before the Blights, when the Dwarven Kingdom was still ruled from the ancient capital, there were 4 great kingdoms: Kal'Sharok, where the noble houses traced back their ancient lines; Orzammar, the home of the mining and smithing castes; Hormak, and Gondar. Each of the 4 great kingdoms had its own Thaigs, its own king, and its own territories, all answering after the move to the High King in Orzammar. It was in the first blight in the year -40 ancient, after the Darkspawn had swarmed Orzammar's gates, that High King Threestone ordered the deep roads sealed forever. Hormak and Gondar were lost within 10 years. Kal'Sharok was thought lost as well, until its reported rediscovery in the Dragon Age, which we'll examine in greater detail in a later video. For now, it's enough to know that the loss of 2 great kingdoms came at significant price. Entire Thaigs remain lost to this day, great wonders that are reported only in myth and legend, cities of gold and memories abandoned to the blight. The Soaring Thaig of Gondar was one of the 4 great kingdoms, home to the famed House of Crystalline Waters, a massive underground lake decorated with shining quartz stalactites that reflected a myriad of colours onto the waters below. Gondar had a king, a proving ground that saw regular use, and it was a centre of great knowledge, and perhaps surprisingly, of sea power and shipwrights. Because of its loss in the Blights, what little we do know of Gondar paints an incomplete picture, but we do know that shipbuilding knowledge was prolific enough to be common knowledge among even the warrior class, for it was one of their warriors, Beregrin the Bold, who spread it to the surface, which directly led to the rise of the naval empire of Antiva, and which continues to rule the Rialto Bay under the auspices of the merchant princes to this day. Beregrin the Bold is an important figure in Gundar's history, for he may have been indirectly responsible for its fall to the Darkspawn. One of the few tales to survive the fall of Gondar, Beregrin's paints a picture of the political situation in the kingdom during the Blight. Beregrin was a member of the warrior caste, an axed man wielding a weapon so old it was laughable, which he paid to have layered with enchantments and power. He was known for his fighting prowess, his formidable tactical knowledge, and his fierce intellect. He's both loved as a hero on the surface, and reviled as a traitor beneath. What tales were preserved from Gundar's memories tell us that during a proving match, Beregrin did battle with the Dwarven King of Gondar, and struck his head from his shoulders. For the crime of regicide, Beregrin was exiled. He cast aside his armour, and abandoned the Thaig to the Darkspawn, travelling to the surface where he taught human smiths, craftsmen, and engineers secrets the dwarves had jealously guarded. Antiva was the beneficiary of this knowledge, and its empire expanded in -30 ancient into a true power. Gondar had been lost by -35 ancient, cut off in -40 ancient from Orzammar and the High King. Bereft of leadership and weak against the onslaught of the Darkspawn with the loss of one of its greatest warriors and its king, Gondar fell to the Blight. Gondar has never been rediscovered, but aligning the maps of the deep roads from Dragon Age Origins places the location of this primary tag somewhere in the vicinity of the Ferelden capital of Denerim, along the Amaranthian Ocean and the coastline. Gondar is not alone in its affiliation with the sea. While shipbuilding is an art that has been lost to the dwarves in Orzammar, Thedas remains in its debt for those secrets shared. The advance of trade shaped modern Thedas. It might be strange for many to consider that the dwarves may have been accomplished shipbuilders, but trade to the dwarves matters, and they had a number of seaports and other mentions of coastal habitations that lend support to this idea, both on the Amaranthian Ocean and into the waking sea. no one knows the full extent or reach of the Dwarven Empire, it is possible and indeed likely that the deep roads span beneath the Waking Sea, according to our maps and the existence of Thaigs on both sides of that sea, and flooded locations like Kadash Thaig in northern Ferelden. But it is also possible their tunnels disappear beneath the Amaranthine Ocean, as Loghain is seen to wander in the Stolen Throne. Genetivi, penultimate scholar and explorer, has descriptions of ships sailing from across the Volca Sea, great vessels that cannot be replicated in Thedas, which bring Voshai goods to the port of Laiash in the Anderfels. In his own words, also of interest are the tales that said the captains of every Voshai ship were dwarves, treated with such deference that implied dwarves held a place of profound power in their society, or, at the very least, among the seafarers of their culture. Back in Thedas, further south from the presumed location of Gundar, we see another famous Thaig, Gwarin, which translated from Old Dwarven means salt pool. Gwarin was built right on the edge of the sea, with sluice gates that could be opened to let in the water. Its purpose was simple, to provide a means for the dwarves to take advantage of shipping lanes that passed along the Amaranthine Ocean's coastline, and to provide salts to the Dwarven Empire. The human town was built after the Thaig atop its location, and it is their port that the dwarves made use of, though Loghain wonders if they did not have their own port underground that let out to the sea. The human town still remains, smaller after its sacking by barbarian tribesmen following the First Blight, and apparently decimated again during the Fifth Blight by Darkspawn, when it was abandoned by its Terran Loghain MacTyr. The outpost remains, sealed from the surface in stone, flooded with seawater, and in disrepair. While we have no imagery of Gwarin itself, we do get a description from King Maric in Terran Loghain and Queen Rowan's journey through this Thaig in the company of the Legion of the Dead during the Stolen Throne. Gwarin contains a massive underground salt lake, shaped with limestone and brine, in turn fed through its sluice gate that lets out to the sea. Its cavern is massive and crisscrossed with pipes that would have covered the ceiling before they fell into disrepair, all emanating from a great steel structure partially submerged in the saltwater lake. The purpose of the structure is unknown, and the dwarves accompanying Maric merely state that the humans with them would not understand. It is obvious that this is a long way down, with pressure that might crush a diver. Perhaps this steel mechanism was a pump of sorts to stop the caverns from flooding, as they since have, but we cannot truly say. Either way, Gwarin proved a significant outpost for the dwarves, as it was signposted from prominent Thaigs like Ortan Thaig, carved in runes along the deep roads. On the opposite side of Ferelden, on the storm coast overlooking the Waking Sea, there is another dwarven outlet that proves again the dwarves had significant impact and interest in sea trade. Darwin's Mouth, built directly into the cliffs on the shore, served to increase the amount of trade happening from nearby Thaigs with the Tevinter Imperium. It served also a diplomatic function, allowing dwarven representatives to engage with the outside world without needing to come to the surface, and this made it a popular meeting place to engage in diplomatic endeavours. It too was lost during the First Blight and fell into disuse, though it was not abandoned in its entirety. It serves as an access point for smugglers and pirates to this day. Surface trade was important to the Dwarven Empire, not only in regards to the movement of the capital from Kal'Sharok to Orzammar, but before this, when trade with Tevinter led to a growth of Dwarven culture both below in the deep roads and above on the surface. Outposts dotted not only the coastlines, but throughout regions populated by Tevinter and other surface settlements, such as the outpost at Valamar, still used by the Carter to this day. Valamar's surface proximity was likely due to its closeness to the town of Redcliffe, which was populated area under Tevinter rule due to the presence of the Imperial Highway. But in truth, the dwarfs did significant trade with the Alamari tribes in the region as well, according to legends like Luthias the Dwarfson and settlements that we have to indicate these arrangements, such as Vigil's Keep. Valamar may have served both. Nowadays, its ceiling has collapsed, exposing much of the Thaig to the sky. Its main areas are linked to the trading outposts and the vault, implying its purpose as a waypoint even from the beginning. It is a popular entrance for surface dwarves seeking to reach the deep roads, such as Bianca Davry, the inventor, who has visited the outpost enough times she has built her own doors. But there are many outposts that are now known only by name, or else are firmly in the hands of the Darkspawn and inaccessible to the dwarves of Orzammar. Among those are the ancestral Thaigs of great noble and warrior houses, including the outpost of Cobaliman, which remains firmly in Darkspawn hands even at the onset of the Fifth Blight, when Captain Roshan lost an entire legion trying to reclaim it. Other Thaigs, like Kal'Barosh and Varen, are known only by vague location and ancestral connection. Kal'Barosh and Varen fell during the First Blight shortly before the fall of Kal'Hirol, making them among the first lost to the Darkspawn. Varen and Kal'Barosh together are said to be south of Kal'Hirol, and housed almost 4,000 dwarves. But Varin is also located somewhere in the vicinity of Dwarven Thaig, which we visit in Dragon Age Inquisition's Descent DLC, putting it somewhere under the Bannorn, as a Legion of the Dead company led by Cardol in the vicinity try to reach Varin's Notch from Hedron Turning. Paragon Varin was a legionnaire himself, who was separated from his company and presumed dead. To survive, he caught and ate nugs, now a staple food of the dwarves, but at the time no better than rats, and his contribution to dwarven culinary society was never forgotten. It is possible that Varin's Notch is where he took shelter during this isolation. Other lost Thaigs include the ancient Zygmunt, whose noble house is now the family of Headshaper Seabor at the Shaperit in Orzammar. But it was not only Thaigs and trade that the Empire lost, as it was consumed by the Darkspawn. Great feats like those of Paragon Astith the Grey, founder of the Silent Sisters, who won the right in approving fighting only with her fists for women to join the warrior caste as soldiers. Or the works of poetry, like those from Paragon Seuss, Embrian and Linchar, were also lost. It is no longer remembered why Paragon Volney became such, though he won his paragonhood by a single vote. We do not know either the deeds of Lantana, Ivo, Prildan or Garin. Some paragons are so old their names are not even recalled, such as the paragons that fought at Marnus Pel to lift the siege during the Fourth Blight. Also lost were great treasures, not only the House of Crystalline Waters but entire Thaigs such as Darmalan, which Bodan says in Dragon Age Origins Rumours has been located somewhere under Western Thedas. Darmalan was no myth, but the Dwarven Empire's greatest source of gold, which is significant, since the dwarves are again responsible for the standardized currency system still at use in Thedas today. In fact, so rich was Darmalan that its weapons were coated in gold prior to its loss to the Darkspawn. The Dwarven Empire lost more than Thaigs to the Darkspawn, they lost an entire world. The other of the great kingdoms, Hormak, was similarly lost, and again what records we have are vague. Hormak remains the only kingdom we cannot find on a map. Hormak's fame, like Orzammar's, appears to be linked to the warrior caste, and particularly the forging of their weapons. It was Paragon Haldane Zadal who first pioneered the art of folding steel, making blades that remain coveted to this day. Hormak battled tirelessly against the Darkspawn hordes. Orzammar was reported to have lost contact with Hormak, but this loss of communication was incredibly one-sided. Orzammar claimed to have lost contact with the other great kingdoms, but news still arrived in Hormak that they had been abandoned. Hormak was defended by one of the greatest warriors in Dwarven history, Aegon Wintersbreath. When he learned that Orzammar was sealing its gates, abandoning the rest of the Thaigs to their fate, he cast aside his hammer and departed for the surface, declaring, "I would rather die under an alien sky than be buried in the stone that betrayed us." By -35 Ancient, Hormak was lost as well, and all trace of the Thaig and its inhabitants has been eradicated even more effectively than in Gundar. In many ways, the ancient Dwarven kingdom's impact on the world is still felt today. The loss of the Dwarven Thaigs, the Dwarven culture, is the loss of Thedas' culture, from their links to the Elves of Elvenan to their influence in the economics and growth of the city-states of the Free Marches and the nations of Thedas. It is the Dwarven language that Thedas speaks, the Dwarven currency that Thedas uses to pay for its goods, and the Dwarven technology that has allowed Thedas to grow even unto today. This is what was lost to the Darkspawn. This is what was lost to the Blight. Great wonders and technological advancements that have literally shaped the world. Next time we'll be digging into what we know of the Darkspawn, of Bunamar, the city of the dead, of the archdemons, and of the Blight. I leave you on the edge of the Darkspawn nest, staring in the abyss that has destroyed a kingdom as large as Thedas itself. I trust Neltunta. May you always find your way in the dark. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters, without whom content like this would not be possible. If you enjoy this series and any of my other work, including Lore and Theory, stories, and my Soundscape series, please consider contributing. Every little bit helps to buy food. Thank you.